Trump indictment coming soon. We're going to get the latest on what is happening out of New York. They're telling us at the Daily Mail that it's not going to be an arrest soon. It's going to be the indictment first, which is what you would expect. And then there's going to be a lot of coordinating between the government, in this case, the local prosecutors, and the Secret Service, because Trump, of course, is a former president. He got Secret Service protection for the rest of his life. And they don't want New York law enforcement officials to come raid his residence. Secret Service may not be too happy about that. So they're going to coordinate it. But the Daily Mail has the exclusive. They're telling us what is happening according to one of their sources. Exclusive. Trump will not be arraigned this week. So he can be indicted. And we've covered a lot of indictments here. And oftentimes the indictments will involve the indictment, right? And then we see it's sealed and everything is a warrant executed. Then they go and they arrest the person who is the subject of the indictment. And then they bring the person into custody. And then they unseal the indictment. And then we see it all on public display. But this is a little bit different. Trump has Secret Service protection and he's going to know all about this, presumably. So what is happening? The indictment will come. Trump's obviously not going to be fleeing the country or anything to avoid this indictment. And so they'll coordinate with the Secret Service. Former president is going to be indicted tomorrow. Secret Service will make plans for the self-surrender and the appearance in New York next week. And now I thought this is what they were talking about this week. In other words, today, when Trump said that I was going to be arrested on Tuesday, I thought this was that deal. You know, they had worked this all together and this is what they had concluded. And this came out from a source familiar with the proceedings. Won't be indicted, will likely be indicted on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, but won't appear before a judge until next week. A source familiar with the proceedings told the Daily Mail there will be no arraignment this week. In the arraignment, you would need the president to be there. You go get him, bring him into custody, and then you would present him in front of the judge. Former presidents currently in Florida expected to formally be charged tomorrow, after which time the DA's office will reach out to Trump and his Secret Service detail to make arrangements for his surrender. So all of that will be going on. There are a couple people there, 2 people, I guess, protesting outside of Trump Tower. Here's another 2 people on the other side. All right. So you see, that's what's going on over there. Now, some people are very upset about this, yours truly included. I think it's an egregious overstep, and I'm not sure there's any coming back from this once this happens. And we've seen historically how a lot of other people have escaped criminality. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. We're looking at Joe Biden in this case. And we're asking ourselves why the double standards. Hillary Clinton had presumably thousands of emails gone, deleted. And the FBI was twisting itself into a pretzel not to charge her. There were some serious concerns here, and everybody just kind of said, well, we're just not going to prosecute political opponents in this country. And that was the default. That was the standard. But that wasn't talking about Donald Trump. And people in this country, a huge portion of them on the left in the blue team, they have this TDS, man. They cannot let it go. And there's been a concern that I've had this entire time that the Democrats were going to paint themselves into a corner on this. If they're constantly telling us that January 6th was the biggest attack on American democracy since the Civil War, and that Trump is, just this close of Hitler and he's a MAGA extremist and all of these things, they have to take action on that, right? They can't just sit around and talk about all that stuff. Otherwise, people will think that they're talking and talking and talking, and their talk is cheap. So they have to do this. And now here we are. But once this happens, now what does that mean? The floodgates are open. And when the Republicans are in charge, we have to start prosecuting the Democrats. Seems only fair. So some people say this is outrageous and insane. Rand Paul is one of them. And he wasn't mincing words about this today. Posted this bright and early. Says a Trump indictment would be a disgusting abuse of power. The DA should be put in jail. Period. Rand Paul. Yeah, nice comment. It is a disgusting abuse of power. It's an insane political prosecution that's never happened before. And he's just going to jump into this haphazardly over a Stormy Daniels issue that involves a star witness called Michael Cohen, who is a convicted liar, literally. Seems like it is not appropriate for a democracy, as they always say. But here we are. Rand Paul says he should be in jail. We'll see if that happens. And the Republicans maybe may take over. The maybe the silver lining in this is that the country reorients itself and says, all right, enough of this crap. We are not going to take it anymore. And that is talking about peaceful, democratic involvement with voices and organization and with fundraising. And there is a response so powerful that it eviscerates politically the other side of the aisle. Now, in New York, they're turning this into a big spectacle as usual. You see there's some officers from the NYPD who are putting out bike racks in New York City. Setting up the bike racks. Which really, those shouldn't even be a big deal for the FBI agents. I mean, they should just be able to basically just leap right over those. All of the CHSs and all of the other feds just kind of hurdle right over it. Just, right over it, right? And then, we're insurrecting the court building. Hey! Then they go arrest a bunch of Trumpers. So that is one scene. There's another scene out where the media is also posted up. Everybody is just salivating, waiting for what happens next. You see police moving barricades around in the background as well. Cameras here front and center. Everybody's bracing for impact, and we haven't seen much by way of protest. And we'll see if anything materializes now that we're getting some more details on this. But something interesting happened. Evidently, there was a bomb threat that got called in, and Bloomberg reported this. Let's see, am I logged in here? Perfect. Bloomberg reports, says bomb threat was called into a New York court where a Trump hearing was held. Hopefully they had caller ID. It might have come from J. Edgar Hoover building. Somebody better check that. Is that Christopher Wray's cell phone again? Somebody get, where's Christopher? Somebody find him. Patricia Hurtado wrote this, says a bomb threat was called in. Okay. As the judge in lower court Manhattan was just about to start a hearing over a $250 million lawsuit by Tishy Letitia, the Tishiest of all Tishies, James, against Donald Trump. Now, there was a 911 call that's being investigated. Was that Liz Cheney? Where's Liz Cheney at? Is she back in Wyoming? Somebody check her burner phones. The courthouse is at 60 Center Street, temporarily closed and searched. The threat was deemed unfounded. You're kidding. So the building featured in the opening of Law and Order is where state civil cases are heard. Letitia Tishy James sued Trump and his company and his 3 children in September. New York PD, the police said that in a statement, it had increased uniformed presence throughout the city. And we heard previously from Mayor Adams saying that they were going to be monitoring your social media to make sure you're not an insurrectionist. But it remained ready to respond to protests and counter protests. Now, law enforcement is on alert as the state grand jury in a separate criminal investigation it examines the payments that Trump paid, and Trump told protesters to protest and take our nation back, which is triggering the blue team all over this country, man. They are so upset about that. He said protest. They're very upset. So that's what Bloomberg is telling us. So FBI, who knows what they were doing. You know who it might have been who made that phone call? It's probably that guy from January 6th who was going to blow up the RNC and the DNC. It's probably that guy. Maybe if they would have found him and focused on their Where's Waldo games against that guy, instead of innocent grandmas doing tours around the Capitol, they would have found him and we wouldn't have had this bomb threat. So hopefully they find him. Again, he's probably hanging out with Christopher Wray. That's where my money is. Now, some people are very upset about this. As I told you, a lot of hysterics coming from the usual crowd. We have Adam Kinzinger. He's posting this on Twitter because Trump's lawyers are getting colorful in their language. Trump's lawyer said, if he's indicted, this is an all-out war. Uh-oh. Now we're getting into some interesting language. It's an all-out war, which I take to mean a political war, like a political blood sport. Like we've said those phrases. And by the way, the Democrats have said this all the time. And we've played clips of them on this channel. We've got 11-minute montages of them. You have Maxine Waters in there. It's like, grab them by the throat and rip their guts out or something. She didn't say that verbatim, but more or less that's what she sounded like. And so, this is the kind of language that you hear regularly from the left. But when Trump's team says it, they all have a meltdown. Oh, gosh. So here Adam says, do not become numb to this. The lawyer for the former president is talking about an all-out war. Insanity. That's an article over from The Hill. So he's very upset about that. Now, just so we're extra clear on this, right? I don't endorse violence, never have on this channel. And I want everybody to be peaceful and happy and well, living a fruitful life. I also encourage people to be involved politically and to not be dissuaded and to not be dejected and demoralized by all of this stuff. And so it is going to require some extra attention, some elevated involvement. And that's what I hear when I listen to those things. So that is from Adam Kinzinger, but he's very sensitive about most things. So you just got to take his language with a grain of salt. But other people in Congress who are still in Congress. Adam Kinzinger is no longer there. Womp womp. But Jim Jordan is there, and he's in charge, in fact, of a lot of different areas of the House, including the Judiciary Committee. And they sent a letter over to Alvin Bragg, the DA from New York, who is spearheading this entire ridiculous saga. So we're going to go through that letter. It's about 4 pages that he sent over from the House committees to the New York offices. We'll read through that, but let's listen to Jim Jordan explain what this is all about in the first place.
Tell me about this letter and what you're seeking.
Well, yeah, this letter comes at the direction of the Speaker for the House Administration Committee, the House Oversight Committee, Chairman Comer, Chairman Stile, and then Judiciary Committee. And we've sent this letter to Mr. Bragg saying, we want to talk to you. We want to know what's going on here. We want to see the communications that have taken place between the Federal Justice Department and your district attorney's office there in Manhattan. Because understand, Harris, first they went after President Trump on Russia. Then it was a phone call with Zelensky. Then they wanted his tax returns. Then they go after his business records. Then they go after his children. And now it's some misdemeanor alleged bookkeeping error that they're going to. And this is from the prosecutor who initially didn't want to do this. In fact, he had people resign because he wasn't going to do this because no one else will bring this case. I mean, the DOJ didn't bring the case. The Federal District of New York didn't bring the case. The previous prosecutor in the district there in Manhattan didn't bring the case. Mr. Bragg himself didn't want to bring the case. But then he got pressured, I think, from the left. And I would say this, the one thing that has changed, the one thing that I think has changed his mind is President Trump announced he was going to run for president again. And suddenly here they go. Now they're coming after him for some alleged bookkeeping error. You've got to be kidding me. So we want to know what kind of federal involvement may have taken place here. And we want to know, did this stem from the Mueller special counsel investigation getting to this point as well?
Awesome. So the Republicans are back in charge and they're actually taking action, which is very good news. Speaking of the letter, let's take a look at some of the details on this thing. Did I pull this up? I did. March 20th, 2023. The letter from Congress and Jim Jordan in the Judiciary Committee is directed to Mr. Alvin Bragg, District Attorney from the state of New York. He says, "Dear Mr. Bragg, you are reportedly about to engage in an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial authority, namely the indictment of a former president of the United States and a current declared candidate for that office. This indictment comes after years of your office searching for a basis, any basis, on which to bring charges, ultimately settling on a novel legal theory untested anywhere in the country, and one that federal authorities even declined to pursue." Jordan says, "If these reports are accurate, your actions will erode confidence in the even-handed application of justice and unalterably interfere in the course of the 2024 presidential election." Election interference by Alvin Bragg. Trump has already declared. So in light of the serious consequence of your actions, we expect that you, Alvin, will testify about what plainly appears to be a politically motivated prosecutorial decision. says the New York County District Attorney's Office has been investigating President Trump since at least 2018, looking for some legal theory on which to bring charges. The facts surrounding the impending indictment have, quote, been known for years. Michael Cohen, President Trump's disgraced former lawyer, pleaded guilty over 4 years ago to charges based on the same facts at issue in the impending indictment. By July 2019, however, federal prosecutors determined that no additional people would be charged alongside Cohen. Now, in the words of one legal scholar, you are attempting to shoehorn the same case with identical facts into a new prosecution, resurrecting a so-called zombie case against President Trump. Even the Washington Post quoted, quote, legal expert as calling your actions unusual because prosecutors have repeatedly examined the long-established details but decided not to pursue the charges. Jordan says, Alvin, the legal theory underlying your reported prosecution appears to be tenuous and untested. Bringing charges for falsifying business records is ordinarily a misdemeanor subject to a 2-year statute of limitations. And that expired long ago. State law, however, allows a district attorney to, quote, elevate nominal misdemeanor conduct to a felony charge if the, quote, intent to defraud includes an intent to commit another crime or to conceal the commission thereof. So it's a little bit of an aggravating factor. In a DUI, you can have a DUI alone by yourself. It's just a regular old DUI. You're over the limit driving down the road. If you have an aggravating factor, like having a child in the car, that will take your misdemeanor DUI from a lower level into a felony DUI because you've got an aggravating factor. Here, the law provides for something very similar. An aggravating factor. Oh, it was intent to commit another crime, to do it again, which will take it out of misdemeanor level into felony world, and it will extend the 2-year statute of limitations, which already would have expired, into a lot longer, whatever it is. It's probably, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it is. Such a showing would extend the statute of limitations to 5 years. There it is. Which would likely expire soon and thus explains your rush to indictment. The only potential speculated crime that could be alleged here would be a violation of campaign finance law, and according to one scholar, a charge the Justice Department has already declined to bring. In addition to the novel and untested legal theory coming out of your office, Alvin, your star witness for this prosecution has a serious credibility problem. A problem you've reportedly recognized. This case relies heavily on the testimony of Michael Cohen, a convicted perjurer with a demonstrable prejudice against President Trump. Cohen pleaded guilty to lying to Congress in 2018. In 2019, when he testified before Democrats on the Oversight Committee to aid their fruitless investigation into President Trump, Cohen lied again 6 times. He's their star witness. He lied to the Democrats in 2018. Cohen has been vocal about his deeply personal animus towards President Trump. And under these circumstances, there is no scenario in which Cohen could fairly be considered to be an unbiased and credible witness. It's nuts. Jordan continues, he says, the inference from the totality of these facts is that your impending indictment, Alvin, is motivated by political calculations. In January of 2022, soon after you took office, you expressed doubts about President Trump's case, and you even suspended the investigation. This decision then caused 2 of your top prosecutors, your investigators, Carrie Dunn and Mark Pomerantz, which we talked about here, to resign in protest and publicly denounce your work. Those 2 guys threw a temper tantrum because this new attorney who just got elected said that he was going to kind of continue on the prior work of the outgoing attorney. And then he got in and sort of didn't. And then his attorney, these other guys, that's our whole reason for existing is to prosecute Trump. And so they threw a temper tantrum and left. Pomerantz heavily criticized you for declining to bring charges. They wrote a letter. I'm pretty sure we read that here. And now Dunn and others are, quote, weighing ways to bar President Trump from holding future office. They just wake up all day thinking about this man. It's weird. Pomerantz has published a book in the past month excoriating you for not aggressively prosecuting Trump. The Washington Post reported that you were deeply stung by this criticism because all these people care about is their cocktail parties. Oh man, they didn't think I was hard enough on Trump and they're not going to like me anymore. I better reopen the investigation and turn my career into something meaningful. The facts of this matter, says Jordan, have not changed since 2018. No new witnesses have emerged. The Justice Department examined the facts in 2019, and they opted not to pursue further prosecutions at that time. Even still, according to the reporting, the investigation, quote, gained some momentum this year. Interesting. And your office convened a new grand jury in January to elevate and evaluate the issue. The only intervening factor, the only thing that changed, it appears, was President Trump announced that he would be a candidate in 2024. So that's weird. Why would that one decision cause you to change your prosecution? Because it's political. Jordan says your decision to pursue such a politically motivated prosecution while adopting progressive criminal justice policies that allow your career criminals to run the streets of Manhattan requires congressional scrutiny about how public safety and those funds are appropriated by Congress and how they're implemented by law enforcement. Additionally, your apparent decision to pursue criminal charges where federal authorities have already declined to do so requires oversight. Why? To inform potential legislative reforms about the delineation of prosecutorial authority between federal and local officials. And finally, because the circumstances of this matter stem in part from Robert Mueller's investigation, Congress may also consider legislative reforms and how special counsels and their prosecutors work. And so, as you can see, Congress is saying, we have a very, very valid legislative purpose for doing all of this, which is great. And we were expecting this to happen. When the Democrats were doing this and saying, we're in charge of Congress, we can do whatever the heck we want because we're Congress. We said the Republicans are going to do it too. They better enjoy it. Now the Republicans are following the pendulum as it swings the other way. So, New York prosecutor Alvin, we want the following from your office. All documents that came from you to any of your U.S. DOJ components. Anybody in Merrick Garland's little cabal of prosecutors. Who are you talking to? We want all documents and communications that you sent to your former employees, these guys, Carrie and Mark, who are criticizing you and they really hurt your feelings. We want to know why. We want all documents and communications about the use of federal funds in your office from the county district attorney's office, and so cut off their money. In addition, your testimony, Alvin, is necessary to advance our oversight and to inform potential legislative reforms. We therefore ask that you come in here and testify in a transcribed interview about these matters as soon as possible. Please provide this information and contact our committee no later than March 23rd. The rules of the House say that we have the authority to investigate this, any matter at any time. Same exact language that Liz Cheney and Fishing Benny Thompson were shoving down our gullets not too long ago. Signed by Jim Jordan, Brian Stahel, and James Comer from the U.S. House of Representatives. Love that. We're going to see how that lands and what Alvin Bragg has to say about it, because we already know that some people are having a meltdown over this. One of those people is called this guy. On MSNBC, they're very petrified about Congress sending letters. What's curious, though, is I don't remember them being too concerned about it when Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger or Fishing Benny Thompson were sending their letters to private citizens demanding all of their private cell phone records and all of their emails and all of the other things. So it's only when one side of Congress does it that it becomes a dangerous precedent. Let's listen to this guy.
Well, I think, Jonathan, this is a very dangerous development where you have the Speaker of the House openly calling for congressional committees to be used as really an obstruction of justice vehicle for Donald Trump. And we've seen to this point almost every activity conducted by the Judiciary Oversight and the so-called Weaponization Committee has been to go after the president, the former president's political adversaries, the current president and his family. And so now they're going to take it to another level to meddle with the district attorney in Manhattan's investigation. So they're going to start start targeting the people who are conducting that investigation. They're going to go after the attorneys. They're going to go after what evidence they have. They're going to go after, heck, it wouldn't surprise me if they try to find out who's actually on this grand jury and to go after them and to do deep oppo research on anyone that's a part of this process to try to undermine this case. And it's a flagrant.
What? That wasn't in the letter at all. Nobody's asking for information on the grand jurors. That is a straw man. That is a ridiculous thing. Nobody's asking for that at all. Oppo research for the grand jurors? What are you, nuts? He's going to get indicted and he'll show up and he'll go through the process. And they're going to try to challenge the indictment by getting information about the grand jurors or something like that. This guy's just making up stuff. It's not that big of a deal. He knows his side has done this many times. Truthfully, I would love it if we didn't have our Congress sending our states any letters. I would love the federal government just to stay the hell out of all of our businesses. But, you know, in this case, if the federal government is going to come put the strong arm and their boots on the necks for the blue team, then the red team should be doing the same thing, except the red team now just goes and, you know, takes it out on their team. This is how it goes. This is the new politics. And this is what the Democrats started a long time ago. We were concerned about it. Now, this guy, you know, he's trying to find a reason why it's so dangerous, but he's, I think, way off the mark. This is what some other Republicans are communicating about. Representative Elise Stefanik is from New York, New York's 21st district, and she says that Alvin Bragg is doing a terrible job. In fact, why is he spending so much time focusing on Donald Trump when the rest of the state seems to be in disorder?
I think Alvin Bragg in particular is the most radical DA you can ultimately get to. George Soros funded him over $1 million, and we have this significant crime crisis in New York State. It's one of the reasons why we picked up 4 congressional seats. So at the same time as you have him politically targeting and persecuting President Trump, he's lowering felonies and misdemeanors, which has been one of the reasons why crime has skyrocketed in New York City. We announced under Chairman Jordan's leadership with Chairman Jamie Comer and Chairman Brian Steil, who have jurisdiction, that we expect and intend to call Alvin Bragg to testify.
He probably won't come, right?
Well, we are going to work very hard, and the American people deserve to have him come and appear, and we want to have access to any documentation between the Department of Justice and the Manhattan DA's office. In addition, there have been numerous members of Alvin Bragg's team who have left in very prominent fashion over the past few years, who have been focused solely at going after President Trump. And the other piece I would note here is, as much as I have been critical of the mainstream media in years past that many of you know, even the Washington Post has pointed out that this is a zombie case that the Department of Justice passed upon, the Southern District of New York passed upon, and yet now you have the most radical DA imaginable going after President Trump and doing the bidding of Joe Biden.
Great comment from Elise Stefanik, and she, I think, hits all the major points, and she's not alone. We've got Byron Donalds, another representative, who says this is egregious. Now, again, they're all freaked out about Trump's response to the actual indictment. It's bizarre. It's actually not bizarre. We can understand why they are doing this. They don't want to talk about the precedent-shattering, egregious smelling political prosecution that their side is involved in. They would rather just talk about Trump's response to what they've done. But Byron Donald and many others are taking this back to the precedent and talking about how horrible the Department of Justice is for even contemplating going down this road.
There are protests. Do you think that they should be peaceful?
Of course. And I think that, of course, every protest should be peaceful. We've never argued for anything different than that. I think if there are Americans who choose to protest, they should do it peacefully. But let's be very clear. What Alvin Bragg and his office is attempting to do is use essentially an investigation that the DOJ looked at, the FEC looked at. They did not bring charges. They said there's nothing really to do with this. They moved on. And he's trying to quote legal experts, shoehorn some legal theory to go get Trump. That's the essence of political prosecution.
They've been working on this for a long time. We've talked about Letitia Tishy James and others. Georgia has their own investigation. Jack Smith from the federal government, they've got their investigation going with the special counsel. And there's so much invested in this. What would it look like if they just turned around and didn't indict Trump? They would look even weaker than we already know them to be. So they're getting very close to it. Alina Habba was outside of court. We are going to listen to her. She also was on the news talking about other people who have not been prosecuted in this very two-tiered system of justice. And so Alina is coming right up as soon as we talk about our friends over at fieldofgreens.com, because we would all like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds. But, you know, how sick are you of all those ads for weight loss pills and fad diets? We've all been there. We've all done that, and we know they don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight probably just falls right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan, and fruit, who's got time to prepare that all day, every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look healthier and feel healthier, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you over to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert when you check out so you can save that 15%. And don't forget, the vegetables, they want to be eaten. They want to nutrify your body. And so make sure you go get them from our friends at fieldofgreens.com with code Robert at checkout. And so let's turn our attention back over to Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, was outside of the court building in Manhattan, where Trump is expected to be indicted very soon. And here's what she said when asked about how Trump is doing. How is he feeling about this entire ordeal? Alina Habba.
Former President Trump and possibly future President Trump has been completely unfairly treated. This is a politicization of our justice system, and I think it's a frightening time for our country, frankly. If Michael Cohen is a key witness, as we're hearing, if they're getting debunked testimony from other people, this is speaking for itself, and I hope that everybody's eyes are open. It would be a very, very grave mistake for them to indict President Trump.
You talk to Mr. Trump every day, maybe multiple times a day. How does he feel? What is he telling you about the DA's case?
I think this is another day for the president, and I think that's the important thing to take away from this. This is something that has been happening since he walked down the escalator at Trump Tower in 2015, 2016, when he was running and won.
I think that is a great point, and one that is going to be amplified as this indictment unfolds. So every single time that Trump said, this is a witch hunt, every single time he said that they're after me, they're coming after me, and I'm in the way so that they don't come get you, right? All of those complaints ever since 2016. And many of those were thrown away. A lot of people sort of forgot about the Russia collusion hoax, how they tried to set him up on that. Every one of these investigations was really much ado about nothing. They all turned into almost nothing. And when this is the big climax of their 8 years, 7 years, 6 years of constant investigation and caterwauling at every turn about what a monster he is, this is what they get him on an old settlement agreement with one of the worst witnesses in the country. That's it. That's what they're going to sing about and be excited about. Not January 6th, not Russia, not anything involving any, racist behavior or anything like that. Any of these fake hoaxes about, it's about a payoff from before he was even president. What? It's going to confirm that all of his complaints are true. He's been dead on about everything. And the fact that this is another day for him is not a good thing. I think it supports his entire history of trying to articulate that he's been in this position. And a lot of people have been dismissive about that, but shouldn't be dismissive about this one. And if he's right about this, I know this as a defense attorney, they can charge anybody for any crime. It's just a lot of the time a matter of luck, how some people get charged and other people don't. Happen to be a cop there and not there. They can come up with a reason to charge anybody for anything. And in this case, Trump has been under that scrutiny his entire time in front of the public eye from a political operation known as the Democrats.
It is the way his life has turned, unfortunately, and he's given up a lot for this country. He had a great life before, I'll tell you that, and he's willing to continue to sacrifice, and I think that speaks volumes to his character and how much he loves this country.
Is he scared? Is he worried about this case?
No, he's not scared.
What is the state of mind
in terms of attention?
He's not scared. He's sad. And I would agree with that. I could sort of think that he would be sad that this is the state of affairs of this current country. I am sad, honestly. I didn't think that it was going to be something that would accelerate this quickly. We had a raid on his residence. After the raid, I thought, well, that's about it. They wouldn't cross that line if they weren't going to lead to an indictment. Here we are. But they're the ones crossing this threshold. We're going to wake up tomorrow and a former president in this country is going to be indicted by some hack prosecutor, literally, from Alvin Bragg, who's got a history of partisan politics, who is doing a terrible job as a DA. He's going to focus all of his efforts on Trump. Why might that be? And what does this do for the pendulum that we have to sort of live under in America? We want a system of government that doesn't prosecute the people that we elect, because if we have that precedent set, the first person who's in charge gets control of the levers and they get to prosecute the entire oppositional party. I think this is it. The Democrats have decided this is their moment. They control the levers of power as best they can, and they're going to consolidate power. That's why this entire J6 operation has been ongoing for as long as it has. This speech from Biden, ultra mega MAGA extremists, the homegrown domestic violent extremism campaigns that have been set up by the DOJ and the FBI. It's all for this, and they're waiting for it. And here it is. So we have another clip from Alina Habba asking about these two tiers of justice. Why do some people get politically prosecuted and others don't?
The truth is they're not spending money on crime victims. But I want to ask you about the fact that this case is relying on the testimony of a perjurer, of a liar, of a Trump hater, and that is Michael Cohen, by another Trump hater, Alvin Bragg, and by a whole series of people like Mark Pomerantz, the guy who wrote the book. I mean, will America tolerate this in the end if there is a trial?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to tolerate if there's an indictment, frankly, Janine. I think that if you have anybody watching the news, both liberal and Republican news, you can see that we have balloons coming over from China. We've got Hunter Biden smoking crack, and he's not getting any penalty. If it was Eric Trump, we all know he'd be arrested in front of his children in 2 minutes. I don't think the world's going to tolerate it. And you can't be an anti-Trumper and just go into DA after DA, AG's offices, grand juries, 20 times, and think that people are going to find you credible or that that's going to give you any merit.
Alina Habba, I think she's right about that there are double standards. It feels strange that Hunter Biden can literally be on the president's payroll, more or less, collecting money from all sorts of foreign sources. We've talked about that ad nauseum here, but nobody cares or bats an eye about any of that. Instead, it's about a Trump payment from 2015, 2016. Alina Habba in the House. Now, we've also got a clip from Trump. He was over at CPAC, and he was talking about some of this, communicating about it directly to the crowd. Here's what he had to say.
The racist Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, who is presiding over one of the most dangerous and violent cities in the United States. You have to see this, the United States, where killings are taking place at a number like nobody's ever seen, right in Manhattan. And he's doing nothing about it, nothing whatsoever. No cash bail for people that just kill people, knife them in the back, hit them over the head with a baseball bat, push them into subways when the train is right there. But this racist DA is being pushed by radical left Democrats, the fake news media, and the Department of Injustice to bring charges against me for now ancient no-affair story of Stormy Horseface Daniels. No attraction. No affair. I call it no affair. Where there's no crime anyway, and charges have never been brought in such a case before. And this case has been looked by every prosecutor. They're all looking. They looked at it for years now. She was represented by Michael Avenatti. How's he doing?
Not too good.
He's now in jail.
Not too good.
And the whole thing is a complete con job. And she was ordered to pay me, a federal court ordered this, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's right. She had to pay him back.
They're still looking at it. They're still looking. And all they do is they cause anger and problems for our country because our people aren't going to take this stuff.
Yeah, it's acceptable for this type of thing to be happening in America. And it sounds like it may take place tomorrow out of New York City. And of course, we will be covering that in detail. So Donald Trump, we're waiting for an indictment or more news on it. Thank you for subscribing and following along as we do. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.